Is there a countdown? Yep, it's all live now.
Okay, good evening and welcome to June meeting of Mansfield Shire Council. I'd like to welcome my fellow councillors and council officers to the meeting tonight, and a special welcome to the new General Manager for Business and Economic Development, Miss Julie Williams. Welcome along, Julie, tonight. I'd like to also welcome all the members of the public who have tuned in to the June meeting, which is obviously the budget meeting. I will now call on each councillor and ask them to confirm verbally that they can see all councillors and hear the proceedings. Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
Councillor Rabi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can see all council officers and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Sladden.
I can hear the proceedings and can see all councillors and council officers.
And Councillor Webb.
I can hear the proceedings and see all councillors and council officers.
I'll now ask each councillor to confirm by raising their hand that they could all hear each statement of other councillors. Thank you. Madam CEO, do we have any apologies tonight's meeting?
No apologies, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now read the statement of commitment and call on each councillor to confirm their commitment. As councillors of Mansfield Shire, we are committed to ensuring our behaviour meets the standards set by the Mansfield Shire Councillor Code of Conduct and Councillor Charter. We will, at all times, faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in us by the community. Councillor Holcomb.
I confirm my commitment, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rabi.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Sladden.
I confirm my commitment.
Councillor Webb.
I confirm my commitment.
I'll now call on Deputy Mayor, Councillor Steve Raby, to recite Council's acknowledgement of country.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The Council affirms its recognition of the Tarongarong people being traditional owners of this area and pays respect to their elders past and present.
Thanks, Councillor Raby. I'll now call on each councillor and ask them to declare whether they have any conflict of interest in relation to the agenda items tonight. Councillor Holcomb.
No conflicts of interest, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Raby.
I have no conflict of interest on any agenda items tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sladden.
I have no conflicts of interest in relation to any agenda items.
And Councillor Webb.
I have no conflicts of interest regarding any agenda items tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Item number 7 is the confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The motion is that the minutes of the Mansfield Shire Council meeting held on 16th of May 2023 and 6th of June 2023 be confirmed as an accurate record.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. A seconder. Councillor Sladden. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. We have no representations at tonight's meeting, no notices of motion. Councillors, can I have a motion for item number 10, being the Mayor's report? Councillor Webb.
Motion be that Council receive the Mayor's report for the period 17th of May 2023 to 21st of June 2023.
And a seconder. Councillor Holcomb. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item number 11 is reports from council appointed representatives. The first being the Mansfield Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which was held recently. Myself, Councillor Holt, I was present at the meeting on the 29th of the 5th. The Audit and Risk Committee meeting discussed various subjects and passed various motions in relation to our Shire's investment schedule, our carry forward projects, our finance quarterly report, our OH&S report, policy review register, our risk register. We reviewed the cleaning contract had a cleaning contract variation and a review around its variations, and we had an internal audit report on stat planning. All those items were discussed, and there was a few recommendations to come out of that audit and risk meeting, a couple around contracts, which looked at perhaps tightening up some policies there. So they were discussed by the audit and risk independent members, and there were some good recommendations to come out of that for staff and for the general managers as a whole. The second report that I have is the Municipal Association of Victoria meeting in Melbourne, which was held on the 19th of the 5th, which is attended by myself and the CEO, Miss Alexander. There was a lot of motions put forward at the MAB conference, a lot around the safety in councils was high on the list, given the recent events that's happened at a few council meetings. There was a planning for the future workshop by MAV participants, which was looking at where the MAV would be perhaps in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, which was very interesting. And there'll be a further report coming out on recommendations there. There was talk of the state government perhaps taking a lot more control over planning issues in local government, and that was also very widely discussed. And there was quite a bit talked about the social and affordable housing situation, and some motions put forward. One which I'd just like to read because I think it sums up very well the mood of the MAV State Conference in relation to this topic. And the motion was that the MAV calls on the Victorian government to create an integrated planning framework across state and local government departments for delivery of sufficient affordable housing that achieves best practice urban design whilst protecting existing neighbourhood character and heritage values. And I thought that was a really good motion. It was unanimously supported, and really the state government are the big players in this space, and they're the ones that need to take leadership here, rather than having individual councils just pushing across their own agendas, which may not line up with this planning scheme in general. So I thought that was a very good motion. There were another 130 motions, all of which you can read in the minutes of that meeting if you so desire. So the next report, Rural Councils of Victoria. Paul, you've got a report there.
Yes, thank you. The Rural Councils of Victoria will be holding their annual forum on the 13th and 14th of July. And following on from the MAV, a major focus of this, which is a Rural Councils of Victoria priority, is housing in rural Victoria. And there will be a presentation from the Mount Alexander Shire, the Moyne Shire, and a case study from the Pyrenees Shire. So similarly to the MAV, RCV, Rural Councils Victoria, we'll be focusing on that, and we look forward to the results of that forum on the 13th and 14th of July. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. That's all for the reports. So if I could have a motion in relation to item agenda number 11, Councillor Rabi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. motion that council note the verbal reports provided by councillors in relation to their representation on external committees.
And a seconder, Councillor Holcomb. All those in favour of the motion? The motion's carried. Item number 12 is public question time. We received 3 questions for tonight's meeting. I will read out the first one, which is from Mr. Ed Adamson. And Mr. Adamson asks, what progress has been made to preserve large old trees in Mansfield Shire, wherever lots of 4,000 metres squared or less have been created in 2022 or earlier? Note, we know that at least one subdivision recently approved requires all trees to be kept. So we recognise council is being responsive to this issue. Now we must have protection for trees on earlier subdivisions. So the response to Mr. Adamson is, council is pleased to confirm that wherever possible, we seek to preserve old trees in accordance with the requirements of the Planning and Environment Act, and council appreciates your acknowledgement of what has been achieved to date in increasing the numbers of trees retained in recent subdivisions. Council is also undertaking a project for voluntary protection of large and significant trees on private land across the Shire in the 2023-24 financial year. Council officers are currently investigating mechanisms to provide the greatest protection to these trees, as they are an important feature of the Mansfield landscape. We have already had interest from the community in being involved in this project, and will be sending out letters in the next financial year and inviting members of our community to participate. As a valued member of our community, your input to the project would be appreciated. Question number 2, Councillor Rabi, would you kindly read that out?
I shall, Mr. Mayor. Question from Ms. Carolyn Suggett. Given the progress from Mount Alexander Shire this week on the allowance of tiny homes on land with existing dwellings, why can Mansfield Council not also consider this as a legitimate local worker accommodation option for this region? Council's response is, Ms. Suggett, we note that the proposal for tiny homes in Mount Alexander Shire, as reported this week, does not seek to provide a permanent housing solution and would only be allowed on certain properties. While this may appear to offer a temporary solution to affordable housing, our local circumstances and the challenges of our region need to be considered. Mansfield Shire is located in a potable water supply catchment area. Any additional dwellings, particularly those not connected to a sewer system, need to be assessed with respect to risk to water quality from the wastewater disposal. The high or extreme bushfire risk areas in our Shire also need consideration. Any increase in population density, particularly in vulnerable areas, requires careful planning and management to ensure the safety of all residents. Council has listened to the concerns from residents about local population growth and infrastructure capacity, and for this reason is keen to ensure that new proposals for local worker accommodation are properly planned and cited to avoid exacerbating these issues. We note that the planning scheme does not preclude the consideration of tiny homes, and any property owners considering this option are encouraged to contact Council's planning team. Council will be undertaking a local law review next financial year to consider these and other issues, and to ensure that any changes we make are in the best interests of all our residents. We will be actively encouraging community feedback and input on the changes required to suit our local circumstances. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. The third question that we received was from Michelle Richards regarding a budget variance in relation to legal fees, as detailed in the finance report included in the Audit and Risk Committee agenda. In accordance with clause 52.910 of Council's governance rules, I've determined that the question be disallowed as it relates to legal advice. So thank you to your question, Ms. Richards, and we'll be in contact with you to speak further about that. Item number 13.1 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Councillors, do we have any questions or queries in relation to the CEO's report? Can I have a motion in relation to the agenda item? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that Council receive and note the CEO's report for the period 17th of May 2023 to 14th of June 2023.
Seconder, Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to the report?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holcomb.
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? In that relate, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 13.2.1 is Amendment C57, Mansfield Planning Scheme Review. The responsible officer is Strategic Planning Officer, Mr. Oscar Yenkin. Welcome, Oscar, to the meeting. We are on item 13.2.1. Councillors, do we have any questions or queries of the responsible officer? No. In that case, can I have a motion? Councillor Sladden.
Take myself off mute. Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is the council request under section 8A 2 and 3 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, the Act, that the Minister for Planning authorise Mansfield Shire Council to prepare Amendment C 57 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme. 2, notify the Minister for Planning that when it exhibits Amendment C 57 Mans, Mansfield Shire Council intends to give full notification of the amendment under section 19 of the Act for a minimum statutory exhibition period of 1 month. 3, when authorised by the Minister for Planning, exhibit Amendment C 57 Mans to the Mansfield Planning Scheme under section 19 of the Act.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. I can have a seconder to that motion. Councillor Webb. Councillor Sladden, do you wish to speak to the motion?
The motion, as has been put, is to ask the Minister to give us permission to put on exhibition the C57 Mans. This is the community's opportunity to have a look at the proposed Mansfield planning scheme. So please, when it does go on exhibition, this is your chance to have a look at it, and please comment on it and contribute, because once the planning scheme is in, that's what council will follow. So this is your opportunity to have a say when it comes to planning in the future for the Mansfield Shire. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Sladden. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak as seconder?
Just to endorse everything Councillor Sladden says, and to add to it is that the reason that these tools exist is to make sure that each local government area has its own unique planning requirements to embrace its unique feel for its area. So this is the tool that we have to make sure that what we love about Mansfield stays the way that we love it, while making space for intelligent use and intelligent development. So absolutely endorse Councillor Hurden's comments. Please comment and would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Thanks, Mr. Yenkin, for coming in. Have a good evening. Item 13.2.2, it's Goffs Bay Boat Sports Recreation Club refurbishment project update. Do we have a responsible officer coming in for this, Madam CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's the General Manager will be taking this one.
Okay, great. Thanks. Councillors, do we have any questions or comments in relation to the Goffs Bay Boat Sport Recreation Club refurbishment project update? Councillor Ravi.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was out there a couple of days ago and it was raining and there was a lot of earthworks. Just wondering, well, I'm not wondering, but are we on track? Do they feel that there's going to be any problem? It's a great undertaking, but there's a lot of earth to move, let me tell you.
Certainly through you, Mr. Mayor. We are regularly meeting through a project control group every fortnight to keep careful watch over what's happening with the grant and the development of that site. As there was some contingencies built into the original project plan to allow for some delays, there was always an expectation that there would be periods of time where you couldn't do work. But yeah, we are still on track to complete in time.
Great news. Thank you.
Councillor Sladden.
Thank you. Ms. Crane, I think I'm in the right section here. My question is regarding the procurement policy. The procurement policy that has been that's attached in our papers, how does that differ from Council's existing procurement policy? I understand that Council is not responsible for this, but we are holding the money and, well, we're receiving the money and we're doling it out, so to speak. Why the need for a separate procurement policy is my question.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Often we do find as a council and a government organisation, our procurement tends to attract a higher price than perhaps a community or a private party can obtain for different works and pieces of and different contractors to undertake work. This procurement policy puts a reasonable governance structure around it to make sure that we are weighting things properly, we are achieving value for money, but at the same time providing a little bit more flexibility in their procurement that we would normally have as a government organisation, which will also see the benefit of some decreased prices. It'll also allows them to take, so they have local contractors who are part of the club that may decide to put in a quote, and there may be bits of in-kind that can then be included as part of their proposals and things like that we wouldn't normally be able to do as a council procurement. So it will make a better value for money and provide a higher level of service than we would achieve if we were going through our normal procurement policies within council.
Thank you for that response. Just a follow-up question. The fact that we're not utilising our own procurement policy and being the holders of the funds, there is no legal implications for council?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a memorandum of understanding between the Goffs Bay Boat Club and council. We also, there's requirements through the grant and oversight by Regional Development Victoria Council and the Goffs Bay Boat Club as to how the funds are expended. So any approvals are done through the PCG, minuted and able to be tracked. There have been a couple of times where we've had questions and we've been able to debate them and come up with a resolution that everyone was comfortable with. So it is a really open and transparent process that the funding body in particular is comfortable with. And we're making sure that everything is trackable and recorded so that if for auditing purposes going forward, we can demonstrate that value for money was achieved and proper procurement protocols were followed.
Thank you, Ms. Crane. And I'd just like to note that this will be a fantastic addition, or it will certainly complement the Lake Eildon Master Plan. I note in the CEO's report earlier on the visitor information statistics and the reason people are coming, and lakes and rivers was certainly number one, so that this type of project will certainly assist us in achieving the aims of that Lake Eildon implementation plan. Thank you.
Ms. Crane, I've got a question. Just in terms of, it says design and approval for a new larger capacity wastewater treatment plant will be undertaken by the Boat Club's project team in consultation with the EPA. Is it normal that you would start a project before you would get approval from about a wastewater treatment plant?
This is a little bit of a different project. You wouldn't normally start a new construction without that sorted out, but because this is an upgrade to an existing building, they have existing wastewater on site. So it's not unusual that this can happen in conjunction. So you often do works on a private dwelling and deal with the wastewater at the same time. The thing that is probably a little bit unusual in this one is the size of the effluent system, which is requiring that for us to work with the EPA, but we're trying to facilitate the best outcome in terms of an improved wastewater treatment system for the area, for the site, as well as something that is effective and affordable for the club to be able to implement at the same time. So it's a fairly technical one. We're getting advice from the EPA, and also we're getting a lot of help internally from council's environmental health team. They've been incredibly helpful with that as well.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I might just add also that this project did involve the design as well as the construction. So that's why it's being done as part of the project, because the project scope did include design as well as construction.
Okay, thanks for your answers. Yep. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Rabi.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council notes the project update and governance structure for the Goffs Bay Boat Sport and Recreation Club redevelopment project.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. A seconder, Councillor Webb. Councillor Rabi, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will briefly, Mr. Mayor, thanks. I went out there to look at the earthworks, the excavators and the D6 dozer going pretty hard out there before it rained. It's a community-driven project. It's incredibly well organised. In fact, I'd go as far to say that the project, building project, construction people out there really know what they're doing. I'm very, very impressed with this. And they're going to inject more than $2 million into their local economy, and also, you know, the Mansfield economy through the redevelopment. So I'm looking forward to going out there and having a beer on the veranda the next in summer when it's finished. And thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Councillor Webb has seconded. You wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else wish to speak? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 13.2.3 is the disposal or sale of council assets policy. The responsible officer is General Manager of Infrastructure and Planning, Melissa Crane. Councillors, do we have any questions or comments or queries in relation to this agenda item? No. Okay, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that Council endorses the Mansfield Shire Council disposal or sale of council assets policy 2023 to replace the Mansfield Shire Council sale of council land and buildings policy 2017, and for Mayor Councillor James Tehan to sign.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Second to the motion, Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
It's fairly straightforward. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holcomb as seconder.
No, nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillors wish to comment? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item number 13.3.1 is the proposed budget 2023-24. Sorry, no, I've made a mistake there. Excuse me. I'd like to call that 13.3.1 is the revised revenue and rating plan 2021-25. The responsible officer is the Manager for Business and Performance, Mr. Tony Cooper, will be joining us. Here he is. Welcome, Mr. Cooper.
Good evening.
Good evening. So we're on item 13.3.1, which is the revised revenue and rating plan 2021-25. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Cooper in relation to this agenda item? No. Okay. Then, councillors, can I have a motion in relation to this agenda item? Councillor Rabi.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That council adopts the revised revenue and rating plan 2021 to 25.
Thanks, Councillor Rabi. Can I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Webb. Councillor Rabi, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Webb.
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillors? Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to speak to this just by filling in ratepayers who might be watching on a bit of background to this rating plan. For the past 3 years, council has, certainly we all know as councillors, but for the public, just let them know that for the past 3 years, we've been following a revenue and rating model that emanated out of Ararat Shire. The model is known as the equitable distribution of rates model. And this approach that we're using here is now used at Ararat, Pyrenees and Mansfield Shires. There's 3 shires using this model. The background to it is that the model was developed as a means of managing rate shock caused by significant changes in property valuations across one or more property sectors. The system uses differential rating to help equalise the rate burden between the various rating sectors. In Mansfield Shire, the large increase that we've had in valuations and the swings between the various sectors we have seen over the last 3 years would have caused significant rate shock in a number of sectors if we hadn't operated under the current rating plan. It's because we've equalised the rate burden that I find this model really attractive and why I'm fully supportive of continuing this model and hence fully supportive of the recommendation put forward. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Where are we? Councillor Arabi, do you wish to speak to the motion? No.
No, thanks. I think everything's been said.
You've
Thanks.
already said yes. Okay. No. All right. If there's no other speakers, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion. Motion is carried. Now we move to item 13.3.2, which is the proposed budget 2023-2024. The responsible officer is Manager of Business and Performance, Mr. Tony Cooper. Councillors, do we have any questions or queries of Mr. Cooper? Councillors, then can I have a motion in relation to this agenda item? Councillor Holcomb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion set out on page 33 of the agenda, which goes over onto page 34 and commences with point 1, stating that having considered all submissions received on the proposed budget, adopts the budget 2023-24, including the schedule of fees and charges for the financial year ending 30th of June 2024.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. A seconder to that, Councillor Arabi. Councillor Holcomb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor, and if you wouldn't mind, I would like you to just indulge me a little bit in speaking to this in terms of background, because I think and why we do what we do with respect to budgets. This is the third budget for this current council, and like all budgets, it's a really important document, and is particularly important in the current economic climate. This budget not only provides a mechanism for the council to forecast ahead, it is also a living document in terms of it is fundamental to how we manage and monitor the financial health and performance of Mansfield Shire. The challenge for our council and all rural councils is how we manage and survive with our limited financial resources. We try to do this by balancing and prioritising the needs of our ratepayers with our legal requirements, combined with allocating our resources as efficiently as possible, and by our ability to proactively seek government and non-government grants, which we are totally dependent on. Having said that, I'd like to congratulate the CEO, the executive team, and all the staff at Mansfield Shire Council for what is an excellent 23-24 budget, and without a doubt is the most financially responsible and progressive budget that I've seen in the last 13 years. The highlights for me of this budget include the rate increase of 3.5%, which is in line with the state government rate cap, and follows on from a 0% rate increase in our first year of council, and I think a 1.75% increase in year 2. The budget also includes a record operating surplus of $9.1 million, a record capital works program of $15.58 million, and includes 4 signature projects, for want of a term. There's 4 very big projects included, which are scheduled for completion next year. That's the Mansfield Heritage Museum, Phase 2 of the heavy vehicle alternative route, the Apollo Street drainage, which has been a long time on the books, and the High Street car park, which we recently purchased and is now going to be construction on that over the next 12 months. I really like this budget because it's a community responsive budget, in that we have responded to the community through a number of different formats, whether that be through budget presentations, engage feedback, and through that we've focused on a number of areas and responded quite definitively to the community, to some of the things that they've asked for, to most of the things that they've asked for. And these include an increase in the outline community infrastructure grant program, which has gone from 50,000 to 75,000 this budget. We've increased the library opening hours and programs in our newly refurbished library, and the response to that has been quite outstanding. Resources have also been added to our field services team and the planning department, both of which have received positive feedback through our community satisfaction surveys. Well, certainly the field services team have. Funding has also been added to support new events and existing events within our Shire. Once again, responding to the public. We also believe that the annual community satisfaction survey fulfills a role in terms of providing feedback to us about what the community sees as important. These surveys continually state that Shire roads, parks and gardens and planning are key issues. This budget puts increased resources into all those areas. Most importantly, Heighton Lane, Rifle Butch Road and the Mount Buller Service Road will all receive significant funding to upgrade these roads over the next 12 months. So there's a heavy road component of our budget going through next year and a heavy workload on our staff accordingly. Council is well aware that we are a customer service organisation, and considerable expenditure has also been allocated to upgrading our systems and processes. The benefits of this should start to be evident towards the end of the 23-24 budget period. On the environmental side, and following on from the installation of solar panels on the council buildings, the budget also has allocated funds to purchase software to improve the carbon emission tracking and reporting. And we'll be funding the appointment of an in-house arborist to assist with the management of trees within our Shire, as well as funding further tree planting, both of which are relevant in relation to that earlier question that the Mayor read out. Waste continues to be a major expense within our budget as we fund improvements to our resource recovery centre, as well as progressing the transition to FOGO on July 1st, 2024. So that is also a big component of what we'll be doing next year. Though personally, perhaps two of the most pleasing features of this budget is the willingness of the CEO and the organisation to tackle the issues of expenditure and the challenge of increasing revenue outside of raising rates. There's been a focus in these areas which I haven't seen in the years that I've been looking at council. Both of these areas have not been adequately addressed in the past, but this year includes expenditure savings of approximately 500,000 across a number of areas, including consultancy fees, which has always been a contentious issue, and using our own in-house expertise for part of our road sheeting program. Anyway, I've spoken for far too long, but I'd like to finish by acknowledging the work that went into the preparation of this budget, particularly by Tony Cooper and the accounting team that supported Tony and helped pull all this together. And again, congratulate the CEO and the organisation for delivering a budget that's both responsible, it's responsive to the community, and is also challenging in terms of being able to achieve it on a number of fronts. So well done, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Holcomb. Councillor Raby, you seconded. You wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I welcome the opportunity to speak to the motion. This is the third budget that we've delivered since October 2020 elections. Of note is the previous two. The first delivering a zero rate rise, the second a rise of only 1.75%, and this one with a rise of 3.5% in the current financial climate with a CPI of around 7%. So all three budgets delivering rate rises being either below or on par with the Essential Services Commission annual rates cap, also known as the Fair Go rates cap. Having recently come through the COVID-19 storm, we have delivered a budget which has a record infrastructure spend, a record surplus, and identifying cost savings to the ratepayers of around $500,000. This budget demonstrates the council have been sailing the ship with a steady hand. Of particular note is the sale of the Mayor's vehicle and cancelling of the credit card, a saving we identified on day one of taking office. This council will continue to identify cost savings for the ratepayer, giving best bang for the buck, pardon me. The work to bring this responsibly sound budget by the staff and Mayor should be acknowledged. And I'm happy to support Councillor Holcomb's motion to pass the 23-24 budget, ensuring once again that Mansfield Shire can meet all of its financial and social obligations now and in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Arabi. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Sladen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I endorse Councillor Holcomb and Councillor Arabi's comments. I'm sorry my speech writer wasn't available today, so I won't read out my speech. But two areas I'd like to comment on, in particular, the increase in the funding for the Outlying Communities Infrastructure Fund. What began as 100,000 was cut to 50, but we've managed to get it back up to 75 now. But more importantly, I'm pleased to see the increase in the staffing numbers. It's nearly, not quite, but it's nearly at a point that is required for a shire of Mansfield's size to adequately service the community. So I'm pleased to see that extra funding, extra resourcing in those positions in the planning and the field services staff. And I congratulate Mr. Cooper and the accounting team. It was a rather drawn out process this time around. There were circumstances, and under those circumstances, Mr. Cooper, I do congratulate you for delivering on this budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sladen. If I could also just add my support to this budget and acknowledge everything that has been said already, and I won't repeat much of that, but I'd just like to point out the budget process and where we started back in November, I think, and called on community submissions then. I think we received at the time over 102 community submissions, and it's really pleasing to see that the way this process was conducted, whereas normally in the past submissions would be called for once we released the draft budget, and then the horse had bolted usually by then. So I think it's a really good process that the CEO introduced this time around. And it's highlighted by the fact that we got so many submissions, and it was great that we were able to act on most of those. I mean, I know a high percentage of them were for extra staffing for the library and for a couple of other things, but it really is a great process, and I really congratulate them for performing that and for being able to pull that off. We had some submissions after the draft budget released, and they were all able to be satisfied as well. I'd just like to ratify the rate increases that we've had over the last 3 years. I think would average out to 1.75%. So it's quite good that we're able to achieve a lot of these projects that we're looking at doing. Obviously, the weather has to help us out a bit too, but we're able to source funding to be able to do the projects that really matter to this community, as Councillor Holcomb highlighted, those strategic roads, the Rifle Butts Road and Highton Lane being two of them, plus the heavy vehicle bypass. So that's great. It was a drawn out process. We had some potholes of our own to get through and to dodge as we got through this process. So I do congratulate Mr. Cooper on seeing this through. It was a fantastic effort. I'd also like to acknowledge Kevin, who I'm not sure whether he's tuned in tonight, but he may have. He came a financial officer, retired financial officer from Mansfield Shire, who came in and helped, who assisted us and assisted Mr. Cooper through the process. So his experience was invaluable to the process as well. So, and I'd like to congratulate all the staff. I know there was many of them who contributed and worked very hard and very long hours to get this through. So congratulations to them on a really good budget. I think this is really economically sustainable, it's responsible, given the economic situation we're sitting in and where we've been with COVID for the past 2 years. So I think all around great effort. So I'd now like to, if there's no further comments to be made, I'd now like to put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is passed. Thanks, Mr. Cooper, for your attendance tonight. We now go to item 13.3.3, which is the review of Mansfield Council Instrument of Delegation S5 and S6. Do we have a responsible officer coming in for this, Madam CEO?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. Julie and myself are happy to take any questions.
Okay, councillors, do we have any questions or queries in relation to this? No. In that case, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Motion being that Council revokes the existing Schedule 5 Instrument of Delegation from Council to Chief Executive Officer previously endorsed by Council on 30th of March 2020. Point 2 endorses the Schedule 5 Instrument of Delegation from Council to Chief Executive Officer dated 27th of June 2023. Point 3 revokes the existing Schedule 6 Instrument of Delegation from Council to members of Council staff previously endorsed by Council on 21st of March 2023. Point 4 endorses the Schedule 6 Instrument of Delegation from Council to members of Council staff dated 27th of June 2023. And point 5 approves Mayor Councillor James Tian to sign and Deputy Mayor Councillor Steve Raby to witness the signing of Schedule S5 Instrument of Delegation to Chief Executive Officer and Schedule S6 Instrument of Delegation members of staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. I have a seconder to that motion. Councillor Raby. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, it's all fairly straightforward. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Raby. Anyone else? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item number 14, Council Meeting Resolution Actions Status Register. Councillors, can I have a motion? Councillor Webb.
Motion being that Council receive and note the Mansfield Shire Council Meeting Resolutions Action Status Register as at 19th of June 2023.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. A seconder, Councillor Holcomb. Does anyone wish to speak to this motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 15.1 is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting and agenda minutes. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? Councillor Raby.
Yeah, motion the council receive the agenda and minutes of the Mansfield Shire Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 29th of May 2023.
Thanks, Councillor Raby. A seconder, Councillor Holcomb. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Sladden.
Just noting, Mr. Mayor, that the minutes were not provided to the council laws, however the agenda was. So it's difficult to vote on the minutes when I have not seen those minutes.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Sladden. Anyone else wish to comment? Okay, can I'll put that motion to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? The motion's carried. Councillor, item number 17 is closure of meeting to members of the public. Councillors, can I have a motion? Councillor Webb.
Motion being that council close the meeting to members of the public under section 66(2)A of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider confidential reports in accordance with section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 for reasons set out in section 18 below.
Thanks, Councillor Webb. Seconder to the motion, Councillor Holcomb. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We'll now move to the confidential meeting, and we'll be back live after that. Thank you. We have everyone here. I'd just like to close the meeting for June 2023. I'd like to thank all councillors for their participation in the meeting and council officers, and thank all members of the public who attended the meeting tonight. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
No.
Well done, Mr. Mayor.
6:20. Are we off air?